Okay, great. We're going to get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the mentor training with Cpra for the youth employment experience. We're going to get started right away. Michele, can you advance the screen? Thanks so much. What we'd like to do, and we start every Mentor Canada and Cpra work with a land acknowledgement. So Mentor Canada would like to respectfully acknowledge that the lands upon which we operate are the traditional territories of the respective First Nations, Métis Nations, and the Innu, who are the long stewards of these lands. We know that Cpra is located on the unceded traditional territories of the Algonquin and the Mohawk Nations. We acknowledge that that the historical oppression of lands, culture, and of the original peoples in what they now know as what we now know as Canada, and what how they've contributed, and we want to contribute to the healing and the decolonization of this journey, but also that we all share in this journey together. So thank you for just taking a moment as people settle into this training. Thank you. We have several presenters today. I am just one of a team of presenters that are joining you today. We've had a really great opportunity over the course of the last year and a half to work really closely with the team at Cpra. And so I am Tracy Luca-Huger. I'm the interim executive director at Mentor Canada. I'll be assisting and guiding some of the conversation today and some of the training. Michele Mantero is our training specialist. Michele guides most of our training, supports organizations. So she will be co-facilitating with us today. As you already know, and I'm sure you've already met MJ, the Director of Operations with Canadian Parks and Recreation Association, as well as Aaron, who is the interim Chief Executive Officer with Canadian Parks and Recreation Association as well. So thank you. We've got a really dynamic team to guide you through understanding and gaining some knowledge around mentorship and mentoring and the employment program. So welcome, everybody. Today, we've got some really clear objectives that we want to ensure that we provide for you today. And so we want to make sure that you have enough time to explore concepts, to gain an understanding of what mentoring is, that we want to build your confidence as you embark on your mentoring journey and your mentoring experience with youth employees. We want you to gain a really good understanding of what mentoring is and the diversity around mentoring and the impact that it has for young people across this country. And to become familiar with the roles of a mentor-mentee, refer to the handbook that Cpra has created, and to really equip you to understand as you launch your programs, but launch in your mentorship journey. We want you to have tremendous success and lots of fun along the way. So we are using Slido. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Slido, but if you're not familiar with it, if you have a phone or a device, you can use the QR code to link you into Slido. If not, if you can open up another screen at slido.com and use the passcode 854242. We're going to do some questions and some surveys and some interactive activities in Slido. So we're going to move you over there really quickly. So if you open up Slido right now, that will allow you to participate. So in one word, what would you like to take away from this training? And you should be able to see that question in Slido right now. Everyone in? I'm just moving over there myself as well. So I just want to make sure that everybody's in there. Okay, we've got some really great responses happening in there so far. Knowledge is our forefront right now that everyone wants to gain from this training. Understanding, guidance, skills management, information, new skills, confidence. I like that one. I want you to feel confident leaving this training today. Career coaching, insight, tips. We're going to give you lots of tips. We're going to give you lots of resources as well. Creative engagement. Oh, I really like that. I don't know who said that or who wrote that in, but I think that that's spectacular. Career coaching, to learn, insight, information, delegating tasks, strategies. This is great. So throughout all of this training today, that is what we're going to spend some time, and you're actually going to learn all of these pieces as well, which I think are excellent. Those are important pieces that we want you to carry and move forward with. So we like this training to be interactive. So please use the chat also. Please raise your hand. If you have a question, just jump in, take yourself off mute. We really do want to make sure that your questions are answered and that you're getting clarification on any of the material that we are presenting. This really is your time to gain a good understanding. And even if there's some resources that you need that maybe aren't included in this training, we are happy to forward those on and to share some other links as well. Thanks, Michelle. We're going to move forward. So we're going to jump in. This is our agenda for today. We're going to provide some introductions on who Mentor Canada is, a little bit more on Parks and Recreation, CPRA, as well as look at what mentoring is, the impact of mentoring, look at developing a mentoring relationship, your role, the role that mentoring can play around building social capital, and then really do a deep dive into the handbook and the program so that you leave with a really good understanding of that resource and the scope of the program and your role within it. So a little bit more about Mentor Canada. Mentor Canada is not a direct service provider. So we do not offer mentoring programs, formal mentoring programs that engage young people and mentors. What we do is actually increase the quality of mentoring. So we work with organizations like Cpra to further advance their mentoring strategies, to help to build capacity and to contribute to strong, effective quality mentoring programs. And so for those pieces, Mentor Canada really does want to ensure that young people have access to really incredible quality mentoring experiences, that more Canadians like yourself step up to become mentors to young people. We know that there are over 15,000 young people wanting to seek out mentoring opportunities. And so we're just really thrilled with Cpra and the strategy that they have used to really engage more young people and engaging in these experiences. And so we want to support mentoring service providers, and we really want to increase the knowledge and awareness that the role that mentoring can play in the lives of Canadians. Our mission is to enable mentoring relationships that encourage young people to reach their full potential through research, network building, and knowledge exchange. And so we see that through Mentor Canada providing resources and supports to direct service providers, that young people will benefit. And so your program here that you're involved in is just one example of a really high quality mentoring experience that's being offered throughout our country and that's been developed. I'm going to hand it to you, Erin.
Thanks, Tracy. Welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here to work with Tracy and the team at Mentor Canada to deliver this training. Tracy introduced me. My name is Erin Love. I'm the interim CEO at the moment at the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. I've connected with all of you, I'm sure, over email at least once before you've connected with your regional project managers. So just to give you a little bit of context, because some of you are new to the Cpra family, the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association is the national organization dedicated to realizing the full potential of parks and recreation across the country. And through our provincial and territorial partners, many of you are members of your provincial or territorial association, we reach about 90% of Canadian communities. So we really truly are a nationwide organization. And Michele, you can advance that slide if you don't mind. Thank you. So our strategic goals at CPRA are listed here. Really, we're a voice for the sector. We build a community. If you haven't checked out our online community yet, it's called The Bench, and it's a wonderful hub for conversation, networking, resources, all sorts of things, events, job postings, all of that is live on the CPRA Bench. And we're also a service provider. So through our members and associations, we put out services for the Parks and Rec sector. And next slide, please, Michele. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we are sort of the national body. Our members include the 13 provincial and territorial associations. We are governed by a board of directors, one representative from every province and territory, in addition to a board chair. And then our national office is located in Ottawa. That's where I am. And we have staff all across the country. We work virtually. We did pre-COVID, and we will continue to do so afterwards as well. Michele, next slide, please. Great. So some of you are familiar with CPRA. For some of you, this might be your first introduction to our organization. But using the Slido, we'll ask, how many years have you been working in the Parks and Recreation field? So we just want to get a feel for who's joining today. We've got an amazing turnout, 63 of us all together here. So thanks for joining. And we want to learn, as Michele, or as Tracy said, we want to learn a little bit more about you. Lots of experience here. This is great. Some newcomers, welcome, new to the field. This is a good mix of people. Wonderful. We've got 38 responses. I'll wait for a couple more to come in. That's great. Thank you so much for letting us know sort of your experience in the field. Welcome to the newcomers and those who are embarking on their Parks and Recreation journey. We hope with you, you stick with us for a long time. I will say welcome to our friends from Ontario. I know for some, the link was giving you some trouble. So I see a few more people joining, and in the chat there's some support from Michele and MJ to get you going on Slido. Next slide, please, Michele. Super. So over to the mentorship program. So this is really, why are we here? We're all part of the Youth Employment Experience program that CPRA offers. So let's go to the next slide. And some of you may have participated in this program last year. This is officially our second year delivering the program. So last year we had about 85 youth and communities join. This year we've increased that number to about 245, which is wonderful. So welcome to those of you who are new to the program. Looks like the majority are new this year, and we have a few familiar faces as well. Welcome back if this is year 2. Hopefully you'll find this training valuable. Continue to embark on your mentorship journey. Great. Next slide, please, Michele. Wonderful. So way back, as Tracy mentioned, about 18 months ago, Mentor Canada and CPRA embarked on this sort of partnership journey. We both are funded through the Government of Canada through the Youth Employment Skills Strategy program, and really found that through our work together, we had a lot of complementary work being done. And so this partnership is just such a natural fit. And from CPRA's perspective, we're just so thrilled to be building this new relationship with Mentor Canada. It's not new anymore, but we're pleased that they've come back for year 2. So hopefully something went well last year. Next slide, please, Michele. Great. Okay, so this is the CPRA Youth Employment Experience. Many of you will be familiar with this. These are the overall goals of the program. There's 6 of them. So Michele, if you could just highlight them. Really, it's about job placements for youth, and not just here's a summer job, but let's invest a little bit deeper into the development of this youth and building up the workforce and the next generation of leaders in the sector. So through this program, we connect them. That's the end of the advancement, Michele, so we'll just hold there for a second. Connecting them with a mentor, really building the skills in those youth, especially supporting youth who face barriers to employment. So for those of you, well, all of you would have applied to the program and would be familiar with those. There's a whole host of different considerations or barriers that we would like to help youth overcome. Some of that may be finding work in rural or remote communities. Some of those may be marginalized youth, racialized youth, youth who are new to Canada or language minorities. Anyway, there's a whole host of barriers, but really through their work with you as their mentor, we hope that they feel empowered after this journey to use their new skills and to continue advancing their work experience and their skills building. And then, of course, support to the communities. We know how important this is. We know, especially in the context of a COVID recovery, how hard it is to find funding to support youth. And especially with this program, which happens to be 100% of a wage subsidy, that helps just a little bit. And whatever we can do to help your community advance their work in Parks and Rec, and especially recover from COVID, that's what Cpra aims to do. So some of you may be familiar with the framework for recreation in Canada, and just that little last logo there at the bottom of the slide pulls out 4 of the goals for the framework for recreation. There are 5 goals, and really it should almost touch upon all 5, but the 4 main ones that this program does reach are listed here. Next slide, please, Michele. Great. Okay, so this is year 2 of a 3-year program. As I said, over 350 youth will be engaged ultimately in the program, and we're almost at that actually, assuming everyone is able to fill the placements for this year. Doesn't mean the program isn't going to run next year. It just means that we've been able to stretch our dollars a little bit further to employ or support more opportunities for youth. So next year, we're still looking at about 150 or so engagements. 100% wage subsidy for the youth, and again, some financial support for the mentor. So that support really goes to the community to fill the mentor's shoes when you're, your regular scope, I will call it, when you're busy supporting the development of the youth that you're working with. And again, thank you to the Government of Canada for this funding through the Youth Employment Skills Strategy Program. And that's just a picture there of some of the youth that we engaged last year. Here's some of the details of who we engaged last year. So 89% of the youth we engaged self-reported that they faced a barrier to employment. That is huge. So this program is reaching, even if there isn't a consideration for that during the hiring process. When we actually reach out to the youth themselves and they can anonymously report, 89% of them did say they faced a barrier to employment. So we're really thrilled to be able to say that we're reaching the youth that this program intends to reach. Over half of them are coming from rural communities across Canada. 37% of them are Indigenous youth. 32% are visible minorities or Black Canadians, and 16% of them have not finished high school. So whether they're still engaged in high school or whether they never completed and are off doing other things, these are youth, and we know that these are barriers to future employment. And this just highlights, that this program is reaching the youth we intend to reach. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Tracy. This is your area of expertise. So now we'll get into a little bit more about what is mentoring and its impact, and I'll come back on a little bit later to talk about the program more specifically.
Thanks, Erin. I'm actually, Michele is going to take care of this part, so I'm going to hand it to Michele.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Michele. I'm the training specialist at Mentor Canada. So yes, let's talk about what is mentoring. So we'll cover a little bit of history this morning. Okay, so I'm not sure if you heard of the Odyssey, but the character Mentor appears in the Odyssey. It's a story that's been told by the Greek poet Homer. So Mentor was a trusted friend of King Odysseus. When the king sailed away to fight in the Trojan War, Mentor was given the task of keeping the kids, the king's only son, safe and helping him grow up to be successful. So the word mentor itself comes from several Greek words meaning to think, to counsel, to remember, and to endure. So the concept of mentor exists for a very long time now. Over time, the term mentor has come to mean a trusted advisor, a friend, even a teacher, and a wise person. So the concept has, of course, evolved, but it still has a significant impact. It's still significant today. So what is the definition of mentoring? So CPRA has their own definition. So their definition is mentoring is the pairing of an experienced or skilled person, which is the mentor, with a person who would like to improve their skills. So the mentee, obviously, and the mentor acts as a role model and supports the mentee by sharing knowledge, resources, and advice to help them improve their skills. So this being said, I have a question for you. If you could be mentored by anyone, who would that be? And go to Fantasyland. It could be a celebrity, a public figure, but it can also be someone close to you, a friend, a member of a family. So yeah, I'd like to hear about who you would like to be mentored by. And as we're doing this, just to get prepared for further in the training, think about why you chose that person. What qualities do they have that you would look, that you appreciate? Wow, intriguing. Okay, yeah. Elon Musk, he probably has really good financial advice to give to people. Yeah, good one. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama came back today. We had a session yesterday and those two names came up as well. Interesting. Serena Williams, Robin Williams, Bill Gates. Bill Gates also is coming back today. George Washington, and Jeanette. I don't know who that is. I'm very curious. I'm going to look this up after. A sister, a grandfather. Yes, it could be somebody close to you, right? Terry Fox. Oh, Terry Fox. Yeah, he's here once. Interesting. Okay. Oh, there's more coming up. Debbie Smith, Chris Hadfield, Yoda. Okay. Jenny Doan. Okay. Well, thanks for your answers. So again, as we advance the training, just keep those answers in mind. And again, why you chose those people. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. So did you know there were different types of mentoring relationships? So there's what we call a formal relationship. So it's a mentoring relationship with usually a structure, there's a time frame, and there's specific goals. It's established by a formal mentoring program, kind of like what you're doing right now with CPRA. And then we have informal and natural, which are similar in the sense that the mentoring relationship evolves organically, almost like a friendship. Mentors who perhaps didn't even realize that they were mentoring a young person by acknowledging their strength and having word of encouragement. So informal would be like a teacher, a coach, a supervisor, and natural would be like a neighbor, somebody of the family, a friend. You're probably thinking right now about someone in your own life that matches those descriptions. So this being said, we'd like to know what type of mentoring relationships do you have personal experience with? Formal, informal, natural, maybe 2 types. I'd like to know, or all types. Okay, all types, 57. So 2 types right now seems to be the top answer. Okay. 2 types, 33%. And that makes sense, right? Most of us would have somebody either informal or natural. So that would make sense. Okay, thanks for your answers. So next we have a quick video to show you. I'm just going to pause it quickly. So this is a video of a young person talking about their own experience with mentoring and the impact it had on him, which will bring us to the next module, which will talk about the impact of mentoring. So I'm just going to let you, and let me know if you can hear it or if you can't.
Amazing mentors who taught me, the little things in life matter, and, influence is at all levels. And so that was one of the first things that I learned. Influence is at all levels. So you don't have to be a CEO or a manager to have influence on someone. You can have influence on the close people around you, like your family, your friends. And as soon as I realized that, I started to carry myself differently. I wanted to have a good influence on the people around me and be able to inspire people just through little things, sleeping earlier or making your bed in the morning. If you do that and people see you that you do that, then you'll see a great change around you. So that was something that definitely in the last year has been really, really cool for me to experience and learn.
Okay, don't hesitate to put your feedback in the chat if you have any feedback, but it's interesting to hear how being mentor, he also felt like he wanted to give back and developed that mentoring mindset himself. Okay, so that brings us to the impact of mentoring. So we'd like to share some stats with you. Okay, so Mentor Canada has conducted a research back in 2020 on the state of mentoring in Canada. It's the first of its kind in Canada, and we'd like to share some of our interesting findings, so some nuggets of information. The research highlights what it means to have a mentor in Canada. So what are the needs, what are the gaps, and what is the impact of having a mentor? The research has shown that there is a link between having had a mentor growing up and the outcomes of the research. However, it does not mean that mentoring leads or causes these outcomes. However, young people who participated in our interviews confirmed that their mentors and mentoring relationships had a positive influence in their lives. So here are some stats that we found really interesting and we wanted to share with you. So as per our research, mentored youth were 95% more likely to have pursue further education after high school, 53% more likely to report good mental health than non-mentor youth. That's a big one. 78% more likely to have an occupation like studying or being employed. And 75% said that their mentor had a significant influence on their self-confidence. So following these results, it allows you to reflect on your journey as a mentor and what support you can provide. So now, what are the barriers to accessing mentors? That's also something that stood out in the research. So roughly 38% of all respondents reported facing barriers accessing a mentor. The 3 top barriers were they didn't know how to find a mentor, they didn't understand the value of having a mentor, and there were not any mentoring program available to them. So this being said, what I really like about your program is that for young people who did not have a mentor in their youth, through your mentoring program, you are helping to fill this need. You will help young people understand and experience the value of having a mentor. So thank you again for embarking on this journey. You are going to fill a big gap. So the power of mentoring. Mentoring relationships are powerful in that they broaden perspectives, increase opportunities, and strengthen communities for everyone. And when we say for everyone, it's not just the mentee who received the benefits of the mentorship, but also the mentor and the community. So for you as a mentor, through this experience, it will help you validate some of your skills, maybe learn and improve your communication skills, gaining new perspective, and maybe even being recognized as a great advisor. Okay, so now that we've talked about what is mentoring, what is the impact of mentoring, so let's look at what is your role as a mentor. So what are some traits of a mentor? So interpersonal warmth, right? Self-aware, active listener. So active listener, so being a good listener. And when we're talking about being a good listener, it means not only not interrupting and truly listening to what a person say, but really hearing what the young person is saying. So for example, if your mentee tells you about a goal that they have, so let's say they like to be a manager one day. It's not only hearing that and preparing a plan for them, but trying to understand really why do they want that? Why is that their goal, right? So that's hearing, really listening to what they need and what they want. Trustworthy and dependable, unconditional positive regard. So as they say, seeing the glass half full instead of half empty. Good-natured humor. Of course, you don't have to be a comedian or being super funny. Basically, what we're saying is invite humor in your mentoring relationship. It's not because it's work that you have to be so serious, right? You can have a good time, right? Having high expectation, but don't expect perfection. So you want to encourage them. You want to ask them, what support do they need? And then walk alongside their journey. So you're there to support them, guide them, but not necessarily telling them what to do. And as you walk alongside them, you can share your own experiences, right? So when you had a difficult time, how did you bounce back, right? That's also walking alongside an individual journey, is also sharing your own experience. So here we have a quick recap. It's pretty much the same. The only additional thing we're talking about here is being a role model for young people. So as they say, lead by example, right? So here we have more specific things that you can do to support young people. So we've talked about being a good listener, but concretely what you can do as well is provide basic tools to your mentee so that they can learn and resolve issues themselves. So as we mentioned earlier, don't do it for them, provide the tools, let them try and find solution. This will increase their self-confidence if they can resolve something on their own. And of course, depending on the type of learning or situation, you can invite the mentee to share with you the solution they are planning on implementing and then discuss it together. You also want to clearly communicate your availability with your mentee. It could be very frustrating for a young person trying to always reach out to you or plan meetings with you and not being able to get a hold of you. So if you set the expectation from the beginning, this will make things easier for both of you. Set reasonable expectation for your mentee. Basically learning how to walk before we can learn how to run, right? So set attainable goals for them. You want to encourage them to work to the best of their abilities. That is pretty self-explanatory. When we're talking about suggesting alternative resources, if they ask you about something that is not your area of expertise, this is really important. It's okay not to know everything. It's not because you're a mentor that you need to have the answers to everything they ask you. It's actually a good thing. if you don't have all the answers. And why is it a good thing? Because if you don't have all the answers, you can introduce your mentee to someone who can help them. And then you contribute to expanding their network. So you're helping them build that bank of connection that they need. And it takes time to build a network, right? So again, if you don't know, point them in the direction of a resource that can help them. You want to provide feedback to your mentees regarding their progress. It's really important. Mentees need to know where they stand so they can better understand the next required action. And then hold them accountable if they're not meeting expectations. So are there any questions? Just going to pause for a second. No? Okay. Okay, so we just talked about all the traits and qualities of mentor. I want to know, did anything stood out for you? Is there any quality that you as a mentor would like to focus on? Any qualities that maybe we did not mention, but you think that are very important as a mentor? And think about that person you chose as your dream mentor. What quality did they have that you wanted? So friendly, yes. Yeah, that brings us to kind of what we say, right? Yes, it's work, but it doesn't mean we have to always be serious. We can have some fun, we can laugh. Driven, patience, yes, totally. Yeah, because they're not going to be at the level that maybe you expect right away. So patience is a must. Supportive, totally. Caring, approachable, so important. Organized, yes, right? And the guide, the handbook that CPRA has will definitely help you being organized. So that's a good thing. Respect, yes. The person you're going to be matched with might have different values than you have. So respect is definitely important. Great communicator, I love that. Positive, yes. Teamwork, yes, that's a really good good one as well. Yes, because if you can't work as a team, it's really hard to have a job, right? Trust, yes, trust is so important. Trust is the base of a lot of a healthy relationship, basically. Really good ones here. Forthcoming, good listener. So communication seems to come back quite a bit. Understanding, yes. Understanding, yes, because all those young people might have different background, different experience, right? So being understanding is a must as well. Really good answers, good feedback. Okay, well, thank you so much. When to turn work off. Yeah, that's a good skill to learn, that's for sure. Fun, yes. Honest, yes. Really good ones. So thank you again for your answers. We will share this with you after the training, by the way, if you wanted to keep a copy of this. Okay. So the next slide is feedback that CPRA received from the last group that participated in the youth employment experience, both from mentors and mentees. These are the qualities that they identify as being important based on the experience that they had. So 88% of mentors felt more confident as a mentor after the session. So that's really good to know that the group that was before you really felt confident as a mentor after they've run those sessions. So I'm going to give you a minute if you want to read some of those quotes. Now, your role as a mentor is not. That's also important to know. These are behaviors that can damage your mentoring relationship, so you really want to be cautious about it. So parent figure who acts like a mom, a dad, or other authority figure. Remember earlier we mentioned that you walk alongside their journey. So you're there to guide them and help them, but you're not their mom, you're not their dad. You're not going to ground them and things like that. Okay, that doesn't work like that. You're not either a therapist or a counselor. If they open up about their mental health, it's okay to listen, of course, and that's an example, but you don't want to try to resolve or provide advices as if you were a therapist. Instead, you want to guide them to the right resource. Cure-all who tries to provide solution to every problem. That's not your role. Again, you're acting as a sounding board for them, as a guide, but you are not there to resolve things for them. Okay, and also be cautious about promoting your own personal religious beliefs or values. That would be inappropriate, of course. And other things to be aware of is sometimes we don't like to, we are afraid of, we're going to hurt people's feeling. So you might be worried about giving constructive feedback, but avoiding constructive feedback is not helpful because you're not helping them grow. So that's also something to keep in mind. And don't be overcritical. I think this all makes sense. It's pretty logic. So what to expect from mentees? You need to expect different stages of development. They have different life circumstances and experiences. Some of them might have experienced systemic racism. And since COVID, a lot of people have experienced mental health issues. So just keep in mind that everyone comes from a unique situation. Think about yourself and what you've been through in the past 2 years during COVID. Also, I think we are almost like the third month in the Ukraine war, and some people have families there, okay? So we all have our way of experiencing, processing our emotions. So it's really important for you as a mentor to be compassionate, okay? Take the time to get to know the mentee, build a relationship of trust. And that's something that you've mentioned, right? When we were looking at the qualities, I saw some of you put trust. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, work through barriers. So many youth in turn face several barriers that impact their work performance and their relationships with colleagues. They may have limited transportation options from their home to the office. Many mentees have limited network of individuals to support them or to model appropriate workplace etiquette. You might be their first model of workplace etiquette, okay? Some of them might have financial resources that are limited, so they may be unable to purchase professional work attire. They may have limited soft skills, so that emotional intelligence, or not have the technical skills to complete a task that you'll assign them. So as a mentor, it is important for you to collaborate with your mentees to identify solutions to these barriers, as well as strengthen their resiliency and ability to self-advocate. And by collaboratively working through barriers, you will build trust with your mentees, and you will alter their trajectory for success in the workplace and in their life. So practice empathy, strengthen cultural competence. When you're with your mentee, it's important to pause and put yourself in their shoes. So at their age and in their context and their life experience. So even if you don't have the same experience, you can probably relate to some of their feelings. So something that might happen is they might be intimidated to speak up in a team meeting, which can be seen as, oh, they're disengaged. But think about yourself. When you feel intimidated, how do you show up? They may feel overwhelmed and communicate defensively. But again, think about yourself. When you feel overwhelmed, how do you communicate effectively? Okay, so meet them where they are, seek to understand their perspective and feelings, practice both patience, and I saw that you've noted that quality in the Slido earlier, patience. So practice both patience and empathy as you work together, while and that will set you both up for success in the mentoring relationship. So this was a lot of words. So your turn. I'd like to know, now that we've talked about the different things, the different, what to expect from mentees. So which one do you think may surface most prominently for youth employees that you are mentoring? Different stages of development, different life circumstances, COVID and mental health, maybe systemic racism. What do you think is more prominent? COVID and mental health, that's a big one, yeah. Different life circumstances, yes. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you a bit more time. I see the answers keeps on coming in. So COVID and mental health seems to be at the top. It's been very hard for young people, right, in the last 2 years, because they're used to see their friends every day. And yeah, it's been a tough one. Okay. And then different life circumstances and experiences, poverty, barriers, newcomers. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So keep that in mind as you start your journey as a mentor, that this is something you can expect that might happen, you might see within your mentoring relationship. So keep that in mind. So we talked about patience, empathy, being compassionate, trying to put ourselves in their shoes. So thank you for your feedback. So what does Mentee want? What do they want? So this is feedback we receive from young people. So what they said is they want personal connections. They want to build a network of support and community. They want to gain perspective. So with you as a mentor, they will have that inside perspective, right, from somebody who already has their feet in the workplace. And they want to build skills they need to succeed. So when we're talking about skills, some feedback that came up is that not only do they want technical skills, but they also want soft skills. So I want to share one comment. So that's from a mentee that provided feedback during the last cycle of the youth experience. So the young person said, I learned so many things from my mentor that I would not have learned in a textbook or classroom, mostly relational skills, such as how important it is to have positive relationships with everyone you work with and for. And I found that really interesting, because the way I read it is that young person, when they embark on that journey, they seem to think they were going to learn technical skills, but then they realized that there was soft skills that were important as well, like emotional intelligence, right? And building positive relationships. So that's really interesting. The next video is that I'm going to present is a video of a young person. It's 30 seconds. That was part of a mentoring program. And she speaks about the qualities of a mentor. So she was not part of your program, but it's still good feedback. So I'm going to play that.
First, I just want to say that give us a space where we can be ourselves without feeling judged and pressured into something that we are or are not. So as Chevy said, just give me a space where I feel comfortable enough to express myself in the way that I wish to. And that is, I think, one of the best forms of mentoring you could give me. And that is something that I don't have a lot of access to sometimes.
Okay, so Tracy, I'm going to hand it back to you.
It's awesome. Thank you. Michele just spent quite a bit of time talking about, and as we saw in the polling, right, that COVID and mental health and different life circumstances certainly plays a big role for young people. And it's important to be able to create a safe space for them. So what does that really mean? And we had lots of conversation about being present right? And it's easy at work to get distracted. It's easy at work when we're not working on site. And I know people are going back to the offices now, but to be distracted, right, with the multiple things that are on your plate. So it's really important when you're scheduling your meetings with your mentee to be present and to make sure that you've blocked off your calendar, that you put things aside and that you actually create some space for you to actually be present. Young people will know, right? They'll know if you're paying attention, if you are present, or if you're distracted, right? Are your eyes diverting somewhere else? Are you actually in the space and really listening to what they're having to say? And it's important for that experience to create that safe space, because as Michele shared, some young people that are going to be your employees and engage in this program maybe haven't had safe spaces for them to be authentically who they are, and to they're going to test it. They're going to get a sense of, are you really there? Are you present? Are you invested? To listen to what is being said, what they're saying to you, and then what is not, right? And that's called attunement. So how attuned are you after you get to know that individual and your mentee to who they are? And sometimes it's really important to point out, if you just get a feeling that they're not themselves that day, right? It's like, you don't seem yourself. Is everything okay? And to ask those questions about who they are and if they're okay. And because other things might be going on. And I know Michele covered a little bit earlier about, other things that might be happening for young people. We know that mental health is an issue, and not just an issue for young people, but for all of us, right? And I think that is the one thing that COVID has done and demonstrated, is that we've all experienced COVID in this circumstance, in this pandemic, for the first time. And so none of us have history or experience in this type of current state that we're in. And so that's important, right? To just pay attention to what's being said, what's not being said, who that young person is in front of you. Because that demonstration will show them if it's a safe place for them to actually be themselves, to open up, and to be authentic. Be cognizant of your language, right? And identity, right? Who they are, the language that they're using, the language that you're using, and how they identify, right? What do they identify with? And be curious about it. Lots of young people that will be coming into this program will come from different backgrounds, and we talked about that, and that was a highlight as well, right? Different backgrounds, different experiences. And to demonstrate confidentiality, and I think that that's an important one. But there are limits to confidentiality. And I think that don't overpromise, because what we do know is that if a young person is speaking about potentially harming themselves or harming somebody else, that you have a duty to report, right? That doesn't outweigh bounds of confidentiality, that you're invested in who they are. And for those young people that might be experiencing those circumstances, that would be an important piece to say, let's get some help together. Let's explore that. And that leans into as well around mental health, right? What are the community supports that exist around mental health? What are those community avenues that they could gain other supports for as well? And so that's important for us as mentors to really think about who that young person is. How are we creating a safe space by us being present, by the language that we're using, by our own body language, and our own lens and our own experiences, and to create an environment that allows a young person to share their own ideas, to talk about their obstacles, their barriers, and to feel comfortable really being authentic about their own experience. It's interesting because the way young people experience employment and our organizations as employees is very different than some of us who have been working for a very long time. And so be curious about their experience. And, we might think it's a welcoming environment, but they may not be experiencing it as such from their lens and as a young person. So that's just an important piece for us to think about, is how we're creating that safe space. And what that also then leads into is about creating a mentoring mindset. And so what does that really mean? And so at Mentor Canada, we really like to explore and have conversation about how we create opportunities through our conversations with young people to develop mentoring moments. And so through our comments, through our responses, through the way that we're engaging with young people, those are potentially mentoring moments. where a young person can experience a mentor and a mentoring experience. So I want you to reflect back for some of you that identified natural or informal mentors. And the majority of us have experienced natural or informal mentors, not being a part of a program. And those individuals either demonstrated something that created an opportunity for us. They demonstrated an investment in who we are, a opportunity to understand us, to walk alongside, and to be non-judgmental. And so when we look at a mentoring moment or building a mentoring mindset, it really is about thinking about who those individuals and who those young people are, the way that we spark an interest in who they are, spark an understanding of their potential. And for many young people, they may not see the potential that they have for their future. They may not recognize a skill that they are demonstrating. And so naming it for them, helping to identify that, giving them the courage to step through a doorway and to say, hey, I think you have this skill. I think you're ready. Let's do it together. Let's practice now. And I think you should take on that challenge. Be present, as we spoke about. Be aware of your interactions, right? Intentional communication, nonverbal communication, because it has an impact on young people. And then empower those young people to ask for help, right? Encourage them to ask for help, to seek out other connections. And those pieces are really important because what we're trying to do is build out connections for young people in that social capital. So you are coming into a mentoring relationship with skills, with knowledge, with varying degrees of your own professional experience, whether that is within the recreation field or outside. But some of those challenges and some of those supports or some of those interests or skills that a young person might want to gain may not be in your wheelhouse. So who do you know within your recreation environment or outside of that you could connect that young person to? So you might know somebody in a different department that has that skill set. And how do you connect them to that individual as well? Because it takes the pressure off you in needing to know everything and be skilled in everything. But also then leverages that young person to have a better understanding and network of other people that could play a role as an informal mentor outside of this program as well. And what we're hoping to do for young people is to give them more formal mentoring opportunities, but then also give them those opportunities to build informal connections and build out those networks. So building out and developing a mentoring mindset really is a frame of mind. So it really is around how do you as a mentor think about your interactions and that it is having an impact or could potentially have an impact on a young person. Next slide, Michele. Thanks. So sometimes there's roadblocks to building a mentoring mindset, right? It's easy for us to blame, to criticize, to be too directive, right? With a young person that we're, sometimes we can be distracted or diverting attention, give unsolicited advice. And so sometimes for young people, they might not necessarily want advice on a personal matter. And so doing that double check-in to say, you know, do you want my advice or do you want me just to listen? And doing that check-in with them, I think, is a really important one because they may not want that. And we know for young people that sometimes if we've created a safe environment for them, they just need a space to share, not interrupting or judging or lecturing, moralizing concept and using that approach, preaching that we spoke about earlier. And then premature problem solving. Again, sometimes young people and our mentees will just want to be able to share and they just need to get it out, right? So taking it from their head and putting it out into the open. And we know that sometimes with goal setting, it's about naming it, right? And just putting it out there will allow somebody to reach a different conclusion or some understanding or going, yeah, that's something for me. Don't jump to problem solving for them. Ask them, right? Should we brainstorm that? What do you think are solutions? And check in to say, hey, do you want some advice? Would you like me to offer you some solutions before jumping in too quickly? Thanks, Michele. And so I love this slide. We use it often when we're talking about mentoring. And it's an image of Death Valley, right? And so what we see on the surface is a desert, it's cracked, it looks dead. But what we do know is that it's just dormant, and that given the right environments, the right conditions, the right nurturing, right? Sun plus water, maybe fertilizer, right? That life is there and inevitable. And so for young people, and especially those young people that maybe have not had a natural or informal mentoring relationship, and certainly have not been part of a mentoring program, right? They may not feel comfortable at the very beginning sharing, right? And things might seem a certain way on the surface, but as you get to know them and as you nurture it, we know through mentoring that those skills will get honed in on, that they will take chances, that they will see their potential. And we saw that in some of the research around mentoring that Michele presented earlier, was that young people that had the experience of having a mentor felt more confident, that they were more likely to be in employment and opportunities, that their mental health actually grew in a stronger way and strengthened. And so those are important things. By just walking alongside and being present and encouraging with a young person, that you're having a huge impact. You may not think as a mentor that you're having much impact if it's not tactical and you're seeing necessarily goals being achieved in the pace that you think that they should. But part of that is nurturing that individual to reach their own potential and to see things from maybe a different lens, but also to shift their horizon on goals that they could attain in the future. Thanks, Michele. So we're going to move on to really looking at mentoring and social capital. And I spoke about that a little bit previously. So 50% of hires result from a personal connection. So we already know that young people coming into your program are looking at and are gaining youth employment. But future employment opportunities and future career moves is also about having a strong network, knowing somebody that might be doing a role or a job or in a career that maybe they want to pursue. So again, think about if a young person is interested in a career in recreation that maybe isn't part of your department, but you know someone in a different department that is in that career, how do you connect them to them, right? Make an introduction, maybe practice with them to do an informational interview as well, and to just understand those opportunities. What we do know is in the field of recreation that there's so many careers and so many different professional opportunities that it really is about opening doors for those young people and allowing them to see different career pathways within the recreation field that I think is really dynamic and a great opportunity for them. And so think about those opportunities for those young people in your role as a mentor, that you don't need to have all the answers, and that your career doesn't necessarily need to align exactly with where they're at right now. But who do you know in your own network that can maybe expand and have those conversations with them? Next slide, Michele. The why, right? So goal number 5 is around recreation capacity, ensure the continued growth and sustainability of the recreation field. So again, you can provide an inside perspective to opportunities within the recreation field, but also you have colleagues or you might know other individuals that can further enhance that opportunity for young people to keep them within this field potentially, or to look at diversification and career mobility. So what I loved about the very beginning when we asked how long you'd been involved in the mentoring or in the recreation field is that it's so diverse. And that is the most amazing thing about mentoring, is that, yes, some individuals have long tenures in the recreation field and others are new, but everyone has a role and something to contribute in a mentoring relationship along that journey. There are benefits for individuals that are just new in the recreation field to mentor somebody and a young employee with that lens, because your journey is maybe just a little bit ahead of them, or maybe your career was very diverse before coming into the recreation field, that a young person can really benefit from hearing that it is about diversity and that careers aren't necessarily linear, right? They ebb and flow, people change sometimes. So it's so great to have such a diverse group of mentors for these young people to benefit from. you can help prepare those young people, right, for their future careers, gain an understanding of recreation, the different career pathways, but also then to figure out what education do I need to obtain? What other soft skills, what credentialing could I also look at obtaining to help me in pursuing the career that I want? Help build confidence. We've talked about that a lot. Expanding that professional network. Again, introduce those young people, other people within your own networks that could help to expand their understanding and career pathways. Again, new career pathways, right? They might be coming into recreation thinking that, okay, it's this type of role and this is the only careers that are in the recreation field. But what we do know is it's very diverse. And then what skills they need to develop. Help them to hone in on some of those skills that they could develop through this mentoring program, but also what other skills could they pursue outside? Thanks, Michele. So we're going to ask in Slido again. So what area do you believe that youth employees need the greatest support with, that you've had experience with, or that when you've engaged with young people? Helping to prepare for their careers, knowledge about new career pathways, building their confidence, expanding those networks, gaining an inside perspective. We'll give you a couple minutes. The helping to build confidence one is such an important piece as well. So for many of the young people that are coming into this program, this might be their first work experience as well. And certainly their first work experience in the recreation field. So they might come in, right, lacking confidence. And so as a mentor, right, it's really about identifying and naming some of those skills that you're seeing and some of the attributes that maybe they have that they may not recognize that they're demonstrating on a weekly basis or a monthly basis within your program as well. So there's no right or wrong. It really is about getting to know who that young person is and about where they might need some of that support. And keeping in mind, again, take the pressure off yourself because you don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to have all of the skill sets. It does not necessarily need to be in your wheelhouse, and it may not, they may not necessarily want to be in the same career pathway as you have had, but how do you branch that out beyond yourself into others to join in supporting that young person and gaining those perspectives? So thanks. Again, this is what we're talking about, is building out those webs of support for young people, enhancing that social capital, right? And what we mean by social capital are these webs of support, right? So they're making a connection to you in that first degree through a formal mentoring connection. But who else do you have in your network that maybe you could connect them to, that could enhance that network, that those young people then could carry on beyond this mentoring experience and beyond this employment experience, that they can then leverage in an informal way? Because we know that this program is finite, but how do those informal connections and those relationships then carry on for those young people that they could carry with them? So this is the synergy between mentors and young leaders, is social connection, building out those networks for them, building out networks of support, you building a connection for them, and then gaining an understanding about different career opportunities and pathways. So it's about being curious about who those young people are, for those young people to be curious about who you are and about the recreation field, building that connection. And then for those young people to get some clarity about their role, about the experience, about the mentoring relationship as well, so that they can pursue future career opportunities as well. Thank you. Thanks, Martin. I'm going to hand it back to you, Michele, to further explore the mentoring relationship.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, developing a mentoring relationship. So in this module, we will be providing concrete actions and also go over the mentoring handbook provided by Cpra to support your mentoring journey. Okay, let's talk about the stages of a mentoring relationship. So every relationship has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and mentoring is no exception. There is a general progression to mentoring relationships. The stages of a mentoring relationship often follow a pattern that can be described in 3 stages. So developing rapport and building trust. So we can call that beginning. Then we have demonstrating commitment and reaching goals. And then finally, the closure. There's no perfect journey, so you will find a way to get to know each other. And as your relationship evolves, think about or keep in mind that we all have different values and beliefs that guide the choices we make in life. So it's important to be aware of your own values and to realize that not all people will share your values. So you may have different opinions and values than the person you'll be matched with. So there may be differences in, let's say, cultural practices, religious belief, family relationship. So your mentee may have different ideas than you about education, work ethic, or what success means. So as a mentor, it's important to respect their values and not try to impose your values on them. It's also important that you demonstrate respect for the mentee's values and beliefs. So how do you do it? So there's a few ideas that are common sense, but good reminders. So educating yourself about their culture, being open-minded and appreciating the mentee's values that may be different from yours, being respectful at all times, of course. And just remember that each person is entitled to hold different values and customs than your own. Your role as a mentor is to make a connection that allows you to be a positive influence. So what do you do in your first mentoring session? So let's talk about actions here. Okay, so the first thing is to initiate, so to get to know each other and establish ground rules. So you want to develop trust. So trust is crucial to a mentoring relationship, but it can also take time to build. So start your mentorship with kind of getting to know you style of meeting. In this first session, both the mentor and mentee can, you can both exchange information about your background or your interest. And slowly as the relationship progresses, you can share more information, leading to more trust. And here we have prepared some questions that can help you get to know your mentee. So you want to ask, what are some of your goals that you like to focus on? What are some of your strengths? And they might not know what their strengths are. You're probably going to help them too as the relationship evolves to identify those. But you might ask them also which competencies they want to develop and what are their expectations. So these are a few questions to help you. And be curious. Okay, so we call those curious questions. Be curious. So curiosity is a quality to be exploited in a mentoring relationship. So curiosity allows us to meet others and overcome our shyness and fear of judgment. It makes us want to discover others for what they are. And therefore, it helps to create a strong bond and a harmonious relationship. It just shows interest. So ask questions. The next thing would be to start the mentoring agreement. So what is a mentoring agreement? So your mentoring relationship should have some clear guidelines regarding behavior and responsibility of the participants. So early on in your relationship, both you and the mentee need to set some rules about your roles. And you want to share what you both expect from the other person and also consider what you bring to the relationship. So what can you do to cultivate a successful connection? So the mentoring guide that is provided by Cpra will help you with establishing communication expectations, define your roles and responsibilities, identifying goals for the mentoring relationship, and to outline skill areas to be enhanced or developed through the program. And then you want to start talking about goals with your mentee. So a big part of the job for the mentee is to define their goals, the goals they want to accomplish during the mentoring relationship. So by identifying these goals early, it can help clarify the journey for the mentorship. So for example, are they looking to build their connection? Are they looking to gain new skills or to make career decisions, for example? So they should have short-term and long-term goal. And you want to make sure that those goals are SMART. Again, the guide will help you with that. So what we're meaning by SMART is those goals need to be specific, they need to be measurable, attainable, relevant, and there needs to be a timeline as when they are expected to reach that goal. So we'll present you an example of the guide in a moment. And then you want to connect. So you've already started to get to know each other. So when we're saying connect is you want to reinforce the existing bond. So once you have gotten to know each other a little bit, you want to nurture the relationship. So once the sprouts start to come out of the ground, you want to continue watering it. We all have diverse personalities. We're all different in some aspect. Some aspects are just more apparent than others. So I'm not sure if you've seen this before. Through the concept of an iceberg, the waterline of visibility shows what is above the waterline. So usually what's immediately apparent when you meet a person. So usually it's like the gender, the race, etc. But there is often like a murky area, which is partly visible, or that you could possibly, things that you can possibly guess. And yeah, so there's so much more to a person. So the relationship can be really rich. So take the time to build a relationship, get to know each other. Everybody has a story. And then reflect on how you can foster a safe space and honor your mentee's life experience, okay? So again, we've mentioned it earlier. Show interest, ask questions, be open-minded, and appreciate the mentee's value that may be different than yours. So some tools that you can use that can help you create common ground or better understand each other if you are struggling to make a connection and bond with your mentee. So there's this test, it's called 16 personalities. It's called the Myers-Briggs Test. It's a free online tool that you can use. You can both do the test and then share each other's result and get to know each other better that way. And it's also something fun to do together, okay? And then there is this other test online that's free. It's called the Strength Finder. That's a tool that can help better understand yourself and push forward your strengths and skills and better define career path. So this for mentee could be really insightful, and for you as well as the mentor. So when you see the result, you can support based on the outcome. And then when we talk about building and managing the relationship, so these are things you want to do that, to nurture that relationship. So you want to work together, obviously. You want to balance teaching and learning. So teaching is like giving lessons about something, right? When learning is gaining knowledge by experiencing, right? So the mentor can be the sounding board. So ask them questions. What's your perspective on this? Ask questions that will bring reflection and help the mentee come to a solution themselves. You don't want to just dictate what to do, or actually you don't want to dictate what to do. Be solution oriented, be transparent about what you and the mentee needs and want. Maybe the mentee is shy to tell you that they don't have what they need out of this mentoring relationship. So be transparent and ask the question. A good relationship is built around good communication. So ask them, am I giving you what you need? That's a good question to ask as you're building your relationship. What can I do different to help you achieve your goal? And you want to celebrate and troubleshoot. So when we're talking about celebrating is when the mentee actually achieve a goal or an accomplishment, celebrate with them. Make sure to let them know that you've noticed that they actually reached their goal. And then connect regularly, right? So if there's no follow-up on goals, it's kind of useless. There's no point, right? So you have to make sure you connect regularly just to check in and see how things are going. And this one's a tough one, carving time, so making the time. And to make sure that you want to set a schedule to meet at the beginning. So in the handbook that you receive from Cpra, there is an agreement, and in the agreement you want to discuss the frequency and duration of each meeting. So set the expectation from the beginning. So for example, we'll meet weekly for 30 minutes or every 2 weeks for 1 hour, whatever it is that you decide, but you need to set the expectation and agree on it together. Don't extend yourself, so make sure to be on time and don't take more time. And Tracy talked about that earlier, but make sure you're not multitasking, that when you're with them, you're really present with them. They will notice if you're not. And that can be really discouraging for a person disengaging. Balancing in-person and virtual meeting, that can also sometimes be a challenge. So as part of your agreement, you want to discuss with the mentee what they would like. So this should be more focused on the mentee because you are there to support them. So ask them what they would prefer. And there's plenty of platform nowadays for you to meet online. You can use FaceTime, Zoom, Teams. There's a lot right now. And being flexible is also important. So for example, maybe you're like, oh, I'm not really good with technologies, but be open-minded to try a new technology if that's easier for your mentee to meet online. And I'm gonna hand it to Erin to talk about the mentoring guide.
Thanks, Michele, and thanks, Tracy, and thanks to all of you for sticking around. We've still got most of us here, which is great. I'm cognizant of the time, so I won't go into too much detail. Michelle's actually touched upon a lot of what I want to show you, but I want to show it to you in the context of the actual guide that you have in your hands. So just for background, the guide was put together with a team of people, many of them the regional managers that you know over email and who are joining us here today. So I don't know, MJ, if you want to spotlight the regional managers. I think for sure we've got AJ, we've got Paul, we've got Robin here. Unfortunately, Noelle from the West isn't able to join us, but maybe we can just, if you don't mind turning your cameras on there, regional managers, people can see you as I chat through. So Recreation North was a big partner as well in the development of this work, specifically around the competencies in recreation. So we know skills are so transferable, and we know that many different industries have very sort of technical and specific skills. In terms of parks and recreation, we want to give a big thank you to Recreation North for lending us the leadership self-assessment tool, as well as the core competencies for skills building in parks and recreation. And welcome, regional managers. You there. All right, so part of the guide is a lot of sort of administrative setup, establishing that relationship, as Michele and Tracy talked so much about. Then we talk about developing a plan and sort of check-in points. You know, set a date or set a target to check in midpoint through the work experience. How are these things going? Are these goals even still relevant? How does this relationship work and evolve, you know, alongside one another? So Michele, if you don't mind advancing the slide. That's great. So here's a picture of the guide itself. This is a quote from a youth. Actually, no, it was from a mentor from last year. So if that's one of you who's joining us from last year, thank you for your feedback. We will be sending a feedback survey to all of you after today's training. And you know, you'll see anonymously, we really do read them. We really do value your feedback and input. So please don't be shy. If there's an area we can improve, or if you liked the training, we really appreciate any of that comments coming forward. Next slide there, Michele. So here's the agreement. We can click through snapshots. So part one is roles and responsibilities. This is what page one looks like. So this is that establishment of the relationship. Who's in charge of what? And we talked there about the mentees' roles and responsibilities. So that's the youth. And then following that, if we click through, Michele, is the mentor. What is the mentor responsible for? Here's part two, which is the basic information. How do you contact each other? Maybe you have your work email addresses, but maybe you're connected if it's a virtual world by cell phone or by a personal email. where do we want to learn? What goals do we want to focus on? Again, those are the SMART goals that Michele was just talking about, and making sure that those are clearly established, that you both know, you and the youth, what we're working towards together. And then the time commitments. So that's not just time on the job, but how much time are we dedicating to building this relationship and establishing this mentorship work together? Maybe it's daily, doesn't necessarily have to be. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's a check-in every couple of weeks. Let's just lay that out as a goal. And again, this can all be revisited and reworked depending on how it's going. So we'll continue there through to, this is the basic information. So this is just a snapshot of what a completed form looks like. And we've blocked out there the relevant identifying information. Again, you'll get a recording of this, so you can go through it in detail later, but we'll click through the next slide as well. Part 3 is the goal setting. So this is those SMART goals long term. So maybe it's during the work term, but maybe it's even longer than that. Maybe it's a few years down the road, or where do I want to be in by the end of this year? And short term, couple of weeks, maybe it's the end of the semester, maybe it's the end of the month. And how am I going to get there is the development plan piece. And again, if we click through, we'll get to an example of what a completed goal setting and plan looks like. This one is fairly robust. Please don't be intimidated. They don't all have to be this thorough, but I just wanted to show you that, you know, in some instances, people really enjoyed this work and they really took it to the next level. So this is just an example of how you could put this together. And finally, the evaluation piece. So you'll see there that there's a mid-program evaluation, checking in on those tasks and on those goals and how are we doing. This is not a formal evaluation. I would say you're doing a good job, you're doing a bad job. I'm not grading you on this. This is a conversation starter. This is an opportunity to learn from each other, to rework the goals, to rework the relationship, to make sure that you're setting yourselves up for success throughout the rest of the work term. And then again, at the end, a reflection. And it's important here, I think, to note that there's an opportunity for the mentee to do a self-assessment. So how do they feel that they did on some of those core competencies and skills building? And then also an assessment of you as a mentor. Again, not to grade you, not to put too much pressure on this, but there is an opportunity here to dive a little bit deeper through the work. Thanks, Michele. So here's another example of an agreement that was completed and submitted to us. We can continue scrolling. So again, there's some development plan and the feedback. So this is the piece that really we wanted to highlight, was that there's an opportunity for feedback throughout the program, and for both of you to have some say in that conversation. And the next slide points to that sort of evaluation piece, how both the mentor and the mentee need to be contributing to this work in order for it to be successful. So it's creating a connection, it's establishing a relationship, and as it's been touched upon a few times today, really walking alongside each other, one another, and supporting each other through this journey. And we'll click on, I think there wasn't a video, but I think we've, just in the interest of time, we'll move forward. And then of course, celebrate at the end, closing the formal program, mentoring the relationship. Again, doesn't need to be a sad ending. Perhaps in some cases, the relationship will continue. Maybe the youth is staying on at the workplace. Maybe you found a new friend or a new colleague or a new peer or a new connection in the sector. And in some way, shape, or form, that relationship will continue. And I'll pass it back over to show some feedback. Again, from last year. You can read through these if you'd like to when you get the slides, or for those of you viewing later. This is some feedback from the youth. We highlighted this just because it's just so genuine, and it took us all, the regional managers, by surprise. This answers the why for us. Why do we do this? Well, to have this kind of an impact on the youth across Canada, in our communities, and especially on the sector, as we we are shaping as leaders, you know, the next generation of leaders in the sector, and it really does matter. So I'll invite you now to visit slido.com for the final question. What is the most valuable thing you learned today? That's a big question, and there's been lots of information put out there. I'll also invite anyone to ask questions. If you'd like to turn your mic on or raise your hand, this would be a good opportunity. I know we're right at the end, so for those of you, if you need to go right at 1:30, thank you for staying as long as you did. And I'll just wait for a moment and watch for hands raised if anyone has any questions or comments. These are great learnings, making sure the mentor mentees on the same page. That connection theme has come up a few times here in the comments. That's great. Networking, stick to the goals, building confidence in their skill set, communication. Wonderful. That's great. And on the note of communication and connection, I mentioned them. Robin is here. Robin is the regional manager for the 3 territories for this project. So for those of you who are joining us from the territories, you'll connect with Robin throughout this experience if you have any questions. Paul is here for Ontario, Manitoba. He's our Central Canadian regional manager. Thanks, Paul. So Manitoba, Ontario, if you have any questions, they go to Paul. And Anjanette Lemay is here from our Atlantic provinces. She's in Nova Scotia, but Newfoundland, PEI, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. If you're joining us from those provinces, AJ is your link in to CPRA and the program. Noelle Virtue couldn't join us today from Western Canada, so she's responsible for BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. And we have Rémi Doucette, who was on yesterday's webinar in French. He takes care of Quebec and Francophone Canada. So the last question here is, would you like a mid-session follow-up program? We didn't have this as an option last year, but there was some feedback that we received that it might be of interest for the mentors to get back together partway through, maybe throughout the summer at some point. Less of a formal presentation, but maybe more of a conversation and an opportunity for you to meet with other mentors in your province or territory, talk about some of the challenges or solutions that you found to challenges that come up along the way, or share successes of your experience through the program. Looks like for many of you, that's a yes. So we will try to make something happen this summer. Optional, of course, but you would be more than welcome to join us or change your mind along the way. Again, thank you for being here. If you have any questions, you can email myself or Tracy from Mentor Canada about the program or mentoring in general. Mentor Canada offers so many wonderful trainings through their program as well. So check out their website. Many of them are free, and you can continue your learning on this journey. So I wish you well. At the beginning, some of you may have started working with your youth already. If you haven't, good luck as you embark on this journey. And thank you again for joining us from across the country. It's a pleasure to see so many faces, and we look forward to learning more about the work that you're doing in your communities. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.